Jackie is now the Climate Justice Initiative Director for the NAACP as part of the NAACP's Environmental and Climate Justice Program. Jackie has also been co-author on a number of really important reports that relate to Olga's story, along with many others. For example, I point you towards the report Cold-Blooded, which details just how systematic environmental racism is in this country. Or Brenton Mock, who has described the energy policy of the United States as coming with the profound whiff of the Deep South. So, in terms of energy apartheid. So, without further ado, it's my honor to introduce Jackie Patterson.
I'm going to scroll through my notes. So I wanted to start by saying it was funny when I was first kind of told about the proposed march, I was actually quite negative on the concept, to be quite honest. I thought that I was not at all a fan because I worried that about the millions of dollars that would be spent to bring everyone to New York for a event that, you know, by Wednesday might be just kind of a blip in the news cycle. And I was concerned, particularly in spending that amount of money, given the plight of frontline communities and the fact that a lot of the communities on the front lines of the struggle can't attract a dime to do the work that they do in order to support their work. So I was quite skeptical. However, once the efforts like this very one that we've been engaged in for this last couple of days started to come together, as well as the People's Climate Summit being organized by the Climate Justice Alliance and other efforts in and around the march, I started to really see a lot of hope and enthusiasm for us really coming together and trading experiences and building joint strategy together. So I definitely celebrate us all being together. Rich day of conversation and prepare for tomorrow's public show of power and unity, I'd like to bring into the room some of the folks who aren't able to join us because they're still on the front lines of the struggle or for other reasons, in terms of their names, their communities, their stories, who are representative of millions of those of us who aren't in the room, and so just a few folks. I don't know how many folks in the room are familiar with the African American tradition of like call and response. Do people know call and response? Okay, cool. So I'm going to pause after each vignette and then thank the person for their leadership. And if you want to give a vocal acknowledgement, that's great. Like if you want to say, and some of the groups I organized them, they use a Yoruba, they'll say ashe, which basically means power, or if you want to say thank you, or anything that kind of calls to you in your tradition, or if you want to just kind of sit and reflect silently, then that's fine too. A friend of mine, Curtis, he doesn't like at all call and response tradition. He always says he dreads the moment when the pastor kind of makes an announcement and says, turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, and I'm like, they don't say that, but he just doesn't like it at all, so don't feel compelled. So I'm just going to call a few people. Dorothy Felix of the Mossville Environmental Action Network in Louisiana, and her community, which is one of the sacrifice zones that we talked about so often today, where they keep building toxic facility after toxic facility, resulting in the community being one of the many cancer clusters that we have across the United States. So we thank Dorothy for her leadership.
Yes.
Casey Camp of the Ponca tribe in Oklahoma. During an event we had this week, releasing a Just Energy Policies report, someone referred to her as Native American, and then they quickly said, is that okay? Is that what we're supposed to say? And then she said, it's okay, just don't say redskin. But then, in a very bravely sobering moment, she educated us on what the origins of the term redskins actually is, and she said, redskins came from the time when there was a bounty on our skin. When they skinned us alive, the skins were red with our blood. So thank you for your leadership, Casey Camp. So So another person I met some years ago, Deanna Lopez, as a young organizer of the Southwest Workers Union, working on toxic labor and immigration in Latino communities in San Antonio. She's a part of the Climate Justice Alliance and a lot of the great organizing that's happening both in her community, locally, and globally, because she often attends these climate talks at the United Nations. And I'm really excited to have seen her come up from her youth and continue to be a great leader. So thank you, Deanna Lopez. Charles Vu of the Boat People SOS, Mercy Housing, and the Mississippi Coalition for Vietnamese American Fisher Folks and Families, who was instrumental in elevating the voices of Vietnamese Americans who were impacted by the BP oil drilling disaster, and who were robbed of their cultures, many of whom weren't able to speak the language in terms of being able to access the resources that were available, and she really made sure that their voices were heard, had folks testifying before Congress, and was just a great leader in making sure that the voices were lifted up. And she didn't speak for them, she actually made sure that they were lifted. The only time she spoke for them was as a translator, but she made sure that it was their voices that were in the places demanding justice. So thank you, Talu.
Yes.
Babs Bagwell of the Ile de Jean Charles Band of the Biloxi Chitimacha Choctaw, who describes herself as a mother, grandmother, activist, and advocate for Mother Earth. She was supposed to join us, but ended up falling ill. She was actually supposed to be in a session earlier today, the Gulf Future session, and she couldn't make it. But she shared through a written statement that her coastal community, which is located in an area that's losing a football field-sized chunk of land every day due to the combination of sea level rise and inundation and the sinking of the land due to drilling in their area. So thank you for your leadership, Babs. So I was blessed to participate on Thursday or maybe it was yesterday, anyway, days running here, and in a meeting called the Caribbean Youth Exchange on Climate Change Resilience, and met these two sisters who were impacted by Sandy, and out of that there was born this disaster activism, which is that they had the spoken word rooted in disaster activism. And so I was impressed by one of the quotes from their spoken word performance. They said, "Who will be paid to rebuild, and who will they rebuild for?" So thank you, the Sisters of Climbing Poetry.
Yes.
So just three more. Dustin White of the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. He's a son of a coal miner in West Virginia who laid his father to rest all too early and joined the front lines of the struggle against mountaintop removal. I met him over time a few times, and I met him most recently. We were releasing the West Virginia Just Energy Policies Report at the state capitol, and there he was with two other gentlemen doing a hunger strike right there in the Capitol for mountaintop removal to call attention. So thank you, Dustin White, for your work.
Thank you.
Yeb Sanyo of the Philippines, who shed tears as he demanded action before the United Nations heads of states who gathered to make compromises, while back at home his family and the communities he represented were burying the dead taken by Typhoon Haiyan. Thank you for your leadership, Yeb.
Yes.
And then finally, the families of Mike Brown, Eric Garner, Oscar Grant, Trayvon Martin. Unfortunately, the list goes on, who through tragedy have become the unwitting champions on the front line of these interconnected struggles. Thank you all for your leadership. Because we've had a number of conversations about food justice, I want to also call up the name and call presente for Charity Hicks, who is a food justice organizer who just here in New York lost her life on May 3rd. Well, she actually was hit by a car on May 31st when she was here for the Left Forum, and was in a coma subsequently and perished some weeks later. But she was an amazing organizer with the Detroit Eastern Michigan Environmental Action Council. And so, I want to just lift up a few of the positive positive gains that we've seen in our organizing over the last couple of years. We have El Vejo in the south side of Chicago who worked with partners, closed the Fisk and Crawford coal plants. We have the fact that there were no new coal plants built at all in 2013, thanks to the activism. I was just told today that there's the only African-American president of a rural electric co-op in North Carolina, in a very poor area of North Carolina, just got a $6 million grant through his activism for energy efficiency projects for low-income persons. The facts right. The Black Mesa Water Coalition and others won the shutdown of the Navajo generating station, if someone can correct me on that, but definitely one of the big coal plants out in the west. And I know for sure they established subsequently hundreds of a new solar field, which represented hundreds of megawatts of installed solar for that community. And then just calling out the various local food movements that have started up around the country. And those are just a few examples of the positive things that we've seen coming about and to celebrate in terms of what we want to build on. So I just want to also just wrap up in saying that this was a great day full of big and small conversations that are moving us all in the right direction. And the fact that you're all here and so energetic at this time of the evening and on the eve of what we're all doing tomorrow. So we know that we are moving in the direction towards the systems change we need to overcome this rapid progression that we're in towards climate change. So some of the things that we heard that we'll take from here include we need to put an end to the intertwined economic and political system that is predicated on the notion that there are winners and there are losers, which results in the commoditization of labor, people, and our natural resources. We need to claim back our democracy and seize our voting rights. We need to get corporate money out of politics and out of our courts. We need to obliterate the concept of corporate personhood. We must have a universally implemented living wage. Proliferation of militarization across the globe and in our communities right here in the United States. We have to deconstruct the prison industrial complex. We must stop the privatization of natural resources which supply basic human needs like water. We have to denounce false solutions from market mechanisms to fracking, nuclear, and clean coal. We have to advance true energy democracy so that we stop polluting our communities, stop exporting pollution to other countries, and start generating our own energy at the community level in safe and healthy ways, such as wind and solar. The food industrial complex, take control away from big ag and grow our own food. We need to end the dig, burn, dump way of dealing with waste and move to zero waste. We need a transportation system that is accessible for all and reduces the amount of cars on the road. Uphold the rights of all indigenous people to sovereignty. We need to eliminate the concept of sacrifice zones and recognize that all lives and all rights matter. Those are just a few of the things we heard. The question is, how do we get there? And I think we've already started that conversation by doing what we just did today, linking arms across movement silos, across race, across class, across organizations. We have to work through the divisions and the tensions and base our ways of working on the Jimenez principles that call for being inclusive, for emphasizing bottom-up organizing, for letting people speak for themselves, for working together in solidarity and mutuality, and for building just relationships amongst ourselves. And finally, to commitment to self-transformation. I look forward to working with you all.